Hey, welcome back to the Next Level Mindset Coaching Podcast, where I believe transforming your mindset is the first step to transforming your life. I'm your host, Tim Peterson, and today we're diving into one of the most important mindset shifts you can ever make. It's how to shift from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. And we're going to be discussing the difference between the fixed mindset and the growth mindset, but also why shifting your mindset matters, as well as 3 helpful steps to changing your mindset and taking action. And those steps that we're going to discuss are recognizing those fixed mindset triggers and reframing your inner dialogue and taking action towards growth. But if you've ever had thoughts, have you ever had thoughts like, I'm just not smart enough, or I can't do that, or that's just the way I am? Those are classic signs of fixed mindset. But the great news is that mindset can be changed. Let's start real quick with a breakdown of what the 2 mindsets are, the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. So the fixed mindset, it's the belief that your abilities and your intelligence and talents are static, or like you're born with it. People with fixed mindsets, they tend to often avoid challenges, and they fear failure, and they feel threatened by the success. They feel threatened by the success of others. So characteristics of the fixed mindset are, you are going to avoid things that seem challenging, or you're going to avoid things that you think you have the potential of failing at. So the fixed mindset is going to be afraid of trying new things, and the fixed mindset is going to be afraid of failing, or afraid of the embarrassment that comes from trying in case they fail. But on the other hand, you've got the growth mindset, and that's the belief that your abilities can be developed through effort and learning and persistence. And the growth mindset, it's going to embrace challenges. It's going to learn from failure, and it's going to see effort as the path to mastery. And I'm referring to it as the mindset and not the person, not a fixed mindset person or a growth mindset person, because I feel like a lot of times everybody is going to have both, at certain points. At times, someone that might usually have a growth mindset, they're going to have a fixed mindset from time to time, given certain circumstances. People that tend to have more of a fixed mindset are still going to have growth mindset circumstances as well. So it's really just becoming aware of which mindset you tend to have more often than not. And the difference between the two can change the course of your life if you learn to recognize the fixed mindset and reframe it to the growth mindset. So let's discuss a little bit of why does this shift matter so much. The thing is that your mindset, it really does affect everything. It affects how you learn and how you handle setbacks. Your mindset, it also affects how you approach relationships and how you pursue your goals. If you tend to believe that you're capable of growth, then you'll put in the work, right? Even if you try and fail, you're going to keep getting back up and trying again. And that's the characteristic of the growth mindset. And this is how the long-term success is built. People with the growth mindset, they're not necessarily going to be smarter or more talented, but they're going to be more persistent and resilient. And they're going to be more willing to be uncomfortable. And I realize that could be a challenge for a lot of people, is maybe becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable, but that's really what leads to success and growth. So just think about that. Are you someone that tends to lean more towards being okay with being uncomfortable, or are you someone that tends to more often than not avoid certain things that are going to make you uncomfortable? And I think as human beings, most people, they do tend to avoid, being in situations that make them uncomfortable. It's just human nature. But reframe that and think about that. Start to think about being okay with being uncomfortable. And it really will open up your mind and help you look at things differently to being okay with the growth. The first step would be to recognize those fixed mindset triggers if you have them, and shifting your mindset to becoming aware of when your fixed mindset shows up. For example, you could ask yourself, when do I tell myself that I can't? Or when do I tend to compare myself to others and feel discouraged? When do I usually avoid challenges because I'm afraid of failing? What circumstances is it that those thoughts usually come up, that I'm afraid of challenges or I want to avoid challenges? It might be at school for some of you, probably at work, or it might be with relationships or with personal goals. But identifying those triggers can help you catch the mindset and the action. Try journaling for a week. Write down some moments when you might feel stuck or defeated. And you might be surprised how often your thoughts default to limitations. The next step would be to reframe your inner dialogue. So the first step would be, recognizing those fixed mindset triggers. But the second would be reframing your inner dialogue. A simple and powerful mindset tool could be using the word yet. Let me tell you what I mean. So for example, instead of saying, I can't do this, you could reframe it and say, I can't do this yet. Or, if you think sometimes that I'm not good at this, you could reframe that and say, I'm still learning how to do this. And so by kind of placing in the word yet, it shifts your brain from more of that dead end to a work in progress. And it just leaves the door open for that growth. Also, challenge the story that you're telling yourself. If someone, if you think from time to time, I'm just not a confident person, you could ask, is that really true? Or have I just been telling myself that for so long that I believe it now? Your inner dialogue, it becomes your reality. So just make sure to make it a supportive one. The third step, so we just talked about step 1 would be to recognizing those fixed mindset triggers. Step 2 would be to reframe that inner dialogue. And the third step would simply be to take action towards growth. And that's the practical side of things. Start doing things that push you out of your comfort zone. I realize that's going to be challenging for a lot of people, stepping outside of your comfort zone. But don't wait until you feel ready. Growth happens through the process of doing and not before it. Some ideas might be taking on a challenge that you've been avoiding, whatever that might be. Learn a new skill and be okay with being the beginner at it. Another idea might be surrounding yourself with growth-minded people. You tend to become what your environment is around you. So be mindful of your environment. Be mindful of those you surround yourself with. Celebrate effort and not just the outcomes. So focus on the progress along the way, and don't be so focused on the end goal that you just give up because it seems like such a drastic change from where you are to your end goal. So just focus on those small wins along the way. And just remember and keep in mind that mistakes, they're proof that you're trying. And every time that you try, you're just reinforcing a growth mindset. A few final thoughts here is just keep in mind again to recognize your fixed mindset triggers, because your awareness of it is powerful. Reframing your self-talk, and just keep in mind that your thoughts, they do create your reality. And that third step again is to take action, because growth happens when you show up consistently and not perfectly. Change your mindset. Changing your mindset, it's not going to happen overnight, but it is going to happen if you stay intentional and compassionate with yourself along the way. I do appreciate you tuning in. And if you found this helpful, please follow or subscribe to the podcast and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. And remember, your mindset, it's not fixed. Your potential is limitless. And until next time, keep growing, and I'll see you at the next level.